Chris Rock said one of the most mild jokes ever.
It was pretty mild.
Jada Pinkett is bald. Apparently, I didn't know this. I found out after the fact that she didn't shave her head voluntarily. She shaved her head because she's suffering from alopecia.
Yeah, I didn't know this either.
So I don't know if Chris knew this, but Chris says a joke around
G.I. Jane
2, looking forward to it. Very mild. Just laughed and even said, "Come on, that was nice." And then Will Smith initially laughs.
Yes.
But it looked like Jada was upset. And so Will changes his tune, walks on stage, and smacks Chris Rock in the face at the Oscars. And then says, "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth."
Yes, he does.
And then he goes, "Come on, man, that was a G.I. Jane joke." And he screams it out like,
"Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth." Yes.
And it's like his lips were quivering. And he, first of all, that whole scene doing that in that manner, in that place, is a great example of what's wrong with the glorification of just being able to go up to someone and smack them in the face. Because that whole thing was so weird.
I'm going to disagree with you here.
Please do. Well, what is your take on it?
I want to let you, I want you to finish though.
Well, no, you said you were going to disagree with me.
Yeah,
What do you think?
Well, I don't actually think that there's any glorification of violence in the sense of free capability on Will's part.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for one, I don't think that there was any inherent given that you could just get away with it. I think that whatever Will did, he did it, and he was like, whatever comes with it, that I'll have to own up to it.
I don't think he was thinking that far ahead at all.
Maybe he wasn't, but maybe he's like, in this moment,
emotionally fragile,
probably,
and he acted on impulse.
Sure,
and I think it's a foolish impulse that you do when you know there's no consequences.
I don't think. But here's the thing: I'm going to say that I don't know that he thinks that there's now in terms of hitting Chris in terms of them and their physical differences and capability of combat. Let's say. Yes.
There's no consequences.
But I'm saying, but there's no consequences in getting out of your seat and striking somebody on national television.
Yeah, but I don't think he was thinking about that. I think he was acting impulsively.
Simply in terms of man to man and who's capable and what's capable. And you know what? That may be the case in the microcosm of things. But if you hit anybody for any reason in public at this point, you have the very real fact of all of the powers of law that be, especially depending on who you are and what the public and the cathedral thinks of you, smashing you to death until you're penniless, bankrupt, and everyone hates you.
Stop. That's not going to happen here. Like,
probably not.
It's never going to happen. He just smacked him.
But
he didn't beat the shit out of him. He didn't harm him.
But,
he smacked him in the face.
We live
and
in a society
him.
where violence is so.
But there's no way. There's no way Will Smith's going to become penniless from smacking Chris Rock.
That was
never.
You wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think so.
He's extremely wealthy. It's not going to happen. And not only that, Chris Rock instantly didn't press charges. He wouldn't press charges, and he just accepted it.
I would say it should have been handled in the back, or he could have at least stood up, said something right on the spot.
But listen, no.
And not done anything about it, or
Chris
said
Rock's
it in the
doing
back.
his fucking job. You don't go and sit in the front row. You're a star at the Oscars. There's a professional comedian whose job is to roast people. That's what he's doing. And what he did was not even insulting.
It's not about...
It was a mild joke.
It's not about... What is it? It's not about giving Will Smith a pass or saying what he did was right. But what I am saying is that from his perspective, if it was that important... He could have, barring going up there and hitting Chris in front of everyone, and he could have said something if he had to do it right then and there, if he felt that it was that egregious of a remark. And I agree with you, Chris Rock's a comedian. The presenters at the Oscars are supposed to be entertainers. Often crack jokes that either that they do themselves in Chris's perspective or from Chris's situation, or ones that are written for him. Chris is a comedian. I highly doubt that they don't know each other at this point, being in Hollywood for as long as they have. And in my opinion, if you really want to settle things, go do it personally speak to the person first, give them an opportunity to apologize for things, especially if they didn't realize that what they were doing was
I hear all the things you're saying, but they're not applicable. That was not an insult. It was the most mild joke about her hairstyle.
I fully
in
get
reference
it.
to a movie where a lady shaved her head.
I fully get it. But
Like
I'm
the
just
idea
simply
that there's
saying
any justification whatsoever of him getting up there and smacking him in the face like
he didn't.
that.
He didn't need to go up there and smack him at all.
No.
But regardless of what you and I think of how important or how what the weight of what Chris said was, just removing us out of the equation. If it's really that important to Jada, and therefore it then becomes important to Will, then he should deal with it on a personal level and have a conversation with Chris before anything.
Of course.
Because you have to give someone the opportunity, because one, you have to assume potentially that Chris had malicious intent in what he had to say.
Well, how do you have malicious intent in a mild joke?
Tell me about it.
No,
I'm saying I don't agree that he did.
I'm telling you, dude, this is all rational thinking about an irrational act.
It's an irrational act. But
he was emotionally fragile, and he acted on impulse in a staggeringly stupid way.
I'll tell you something. Somebody, a good dude who I know didn't mean any harm, was kind of, playfully, verbally sparring with my girlfriend. And she didn't actually, it made her really uncomfortable, and she didn't really like it. And so the next time we run into him, and my girlfriend's like, I hope he doesn't, come up and say XYZ again. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. And he does. And I'm like, okay. So I pull him to the side, and I'm like, hey, look, I know you don't mean anything by it, but XYZ. And we just have a simple conversation, and the guy's just like, yeah, I don't want to have
rational.
But
that's a rational response.
I get it.
To two human beings having some sort of a dispute.
But to assume people have malicious intent, especially in that position, I think is an erroneous way of approaching it. So I don't think
it had anything to do with that. I think what he was doing was
you don't think
saving face.
You think so?
He was doing some weird movie thing. It was like he was getting away with it as if he was living in a fictional movie. Like the idea that you think it's smart while wearing a tuxedo to walk onto a stage in front of the world, like literally the world, one of the biggest award shows on earth, if not the biggest, and smack a comedian for the most mild joke, and then sit there quivering saying, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. And everybody's just going to sit there in the shit that you just took on the table. You just pulled your pants down and took a shit on the dinner table, and they all have to just sit there and look at that. That's what it's like.
A shit full of peanuts and corn and everything.
It stinks. It's just the whole idea behind it is completely irrational. But what I'm saying is, like, these people live in this fake world of, you're protected by guards, you're driven by limos, you're on the red carpet, like all of it is crazy life. And
I agree.
He's so goddamn famous and so removed from regular discourse and interaction with regular people that he, for whatever reason in his head, acted like he's a character in a movie.
Maybe so.
That's what happened right afterwards. He won the Academy Award, then goes up and does a speech. The whole thing was so bizarre, and it made me think, like, how many other human beings could be in a similar situation and pull that off?
Not many.
Like if a man walked on stage and smacked a woman.
That would not fly.
Would not fly.
Not fly.
If a woman walked on stage and smacked another woman, I don't even think it would fly.
Probably not.
Probably not.
But